Hey, welcome everybody. Thanks for joining us for another Monday meet and greet interview session. Today we have one of our awesome volunteers, and I've just got to share. He comes to us all the way from Wyoming. No, not every single day. That'd be a heck of a commute, but they come out several times throughout the year and support our programming and do so much for our horses. He is a lieutenant colonel and was a Green Beret and Ranger qualified in the U.S. Army.
Okay, yeah.
And he's a retired special agent with the FBI. Pretty cool stuff. We could call him Bond, maybe. I don't know. And he worked in 14 months in Afghanistan as a contractor. And we'll have him elaborate maybe a little bit on that. So without further ado, I want to introduce you all to Doug Walker. How you doing, Doug?
Hi, Jenna. How are you? And hi to everybody else.
Very good. All right, Mr. Doug, so you have a very interesting background and have multiple areas in which your life experiences have benefited our mission here. How long have you worked with horses?
So, I've been associated with horses for probably 30 years, and I'm 58 years old, so I kind of got a late start. But I say associated with because in some of those earlier years, I thought I knew what I was doing, and I really didn't. And what I know now is that I consider myself a student of the horse, and that I learn something every day, and I learn something from almost everyone, because lots of us we experience and we get better through our mistakes. And so I've made a lot of mistakes along the way, and I'm trying not to do that, because what I find is that most horses are not bad horses. They don't have problems. It's all brought about by the rider, or the whatever the term you use, the master or the rider, whatever. It's usually humans that create the problems, and so I've tried not to do that later in life. So I've probably been a more responsible student of the horse for about the past 15 years.
Definitely, and it's never too late to get started. And responsible student is a really good way of putting it, because you certainly, it shows in your work and dedication to the horse, and really helping, I think, help the horses learn to understand what it is you're asking of them. What drew you to working with horses at this stage in life?
Well, like most Americans, I grew up wanting to be a cowboy, and my family was of modest means. Horses are expensive, and they always have been. So I wasn't able to afford, to live the life I wanted to live. I had a great childhood growing up. Had a great set of parents, and so they built the building blocks of hard work, study, application of what you're doing, so that all laid the building blocks for what I would do later in life, whether it be in the Army or the FBI or with horses. So while I wasn't able to begin early, the things that I was doing really lent itself to that.
Definitely. And coming from Wyoming, I understand you do a lot of work with mustangs, and you've worked a little bit with the Wild Horse and Burro program, possibly?
So the Wild Horse and Burro program is where Sarah works.
Okay.
And it's the name of the organization is called Wind River Wild Horses, I believe. And it's a native owned and run organization. It's located on the Wind River Indian Reservation, and Sarah was able to get a job there, and she works with wild horses, mustangs, and I have a mustang, and we've had 3. And so I've learned a lot about horsemanship and training, because I I trained those 3 Mustangs, my son and I've trained the other horses that we have. We got as colts, and we started the colts in the spring, so we've had them, 17, 18, 19, 20 years.
Mm-hmm.
And Mustangs are very different. There's a saying that you can't ride color, because a lot of people are drawn to a specific color. You can't ride that color, but what you can ride is breeding. And so, we can breed horses for certain tasks, for certain aspects, for certain temperaments and things like that. What you don't know with the Mustang is what you're going to get, because you don't know his breeding.
Mm-hmm.
They come with some very peculiar characteristics and traits, because they were living wild on the range till somehow they came into our care and custody. And they're very different. They're very social. The Mustangs that we had are very social, not standoffish. But you had to work them through some very different, some very different things than you might have to work a horse that's, bred from domesticated stock.
Mm-hmm.
The Mustangs, may have never had a human hand on them, and I still have him. I still own him, and I can ride him, but really no one else can. My daughter can halter him and lead him and groom him, but won't let anybody else ride him. And so they're funny,
Mm-hmm.
and they're very different. So it's interesting when people want to get a Mustang, and it was me. It was the same with me. I was like, wow, we're gonna get this Mustang, and we're gonna live the dream. And it was not just the horse going to school. It was me, and I went to school, and so my real education began with training those horses, because we had an old cowboy in our church, and he was a farrier. He was shoeing my horses at 85, and he quite frankly says, you need to bring these horses to my house, and I'll show you what you need to do before they kill you. And so I spent several years at his place learning to work horses and learning to break horses. And breaking is kind of maybe the wrong term. It's kind of an old term. We never broke their spirit. We never broke that thing that makes them an individual apart from the herd and apart from you. But you have to bring them under control. You have to establish your leadership, and that was really hard with these Mustangs, because they had very different ideas of what a leader looked like. And so it was a really interesting experience, and one that I spent a lot of time, getting bucked off, and because my Mustang, he was the alpha. He was proud cut, so he was cut from a different mold of cloth, and so it was a great experience. So it taught me that basically, I didn't know a lot about horses, and I needed to learn, and this old cowboy did. He did not subscribe to that old philosophy of you break them down, and you break your spirit, you break your will, and he did not subscribe to that, because what he wanted was a horse that once he was trained, he was alive on the other end, and
Mm-hmm.
He was alive, and it was more of a partnership for him, and so that's where I started learning about establishing that bond with the horse. When I'm training a horse in Wyoming, I feed, I water, I groom. No one else touches that horse but me.
Mm-hmm.
And so I want to build that bond. I spend a lot of time grooming. I spend a lot of time with it. In the evenings, I might like to smoke a cigar. I'll go out there and I'll sit out there on the fence rail and feed So, you know, I want him to associate all sorts of good things with being with me.
Definitely. I think that's perfect. I think that kind of captures how working with horses can be humbling to us as
Oh,
humans.
absolutely, absolutely.
And it is. It's not like an open and closed book that you just study. Every horse, every relationship, every partnership that you develop is going to be different and unique, and you never stop learning.
No, absolutely. I mean, just like you and I are different, and I'm different from Mr. Phil. Those horses are all different from each other out there, and you have to be attuned to what it is they enjoy, what it is they don't like, and then, you know, occasionally they're not going to like something they're going to need to do for you. So you have to, I don't know what the right term is, you have to de-link whatever bad happened in their past from that event, and make that event just a normal part of their life with you. And you know, I found that most horses want the job, they want something to do. I think that they're kind of naturally drawn to people. Maybe God just made them that way, and that they want to have a job, they want to have some interaction, they want something meaningful to do. Walking around the pasture really, you know, doesn't do it for them. You know, case in point, Bubba. You know, Bubba, you know, he's really kind of come into his own. I enjoy spending time with him. You know, he's got where when he sees me, you know, he comes to me, and we reinforce that relationship with, you know, some fun things for him. And you know, and you know, especially in your job here, where you want these horses to be loving and kind and enjoy that contact with your clients. You know, that begins out there.
Well, and that kind of takes me to my next part here. We were thinking you work a lot with Casino and Rowdy and Bubba here at the farm when you're in town, and it really looks like you work on connecting and establishing that trusting bond, and also demonstrating that leadership and confidence, which I think the horses naturally look for. Can you talk a little bit about how the connection process, how you develop that, and why it's so important?
Yeah, you know, there's some people out there that are good enough riders where they can walk up to any horse out there, throw a saddle on it, and stand saddle. Um, and it's not that they're not good trainers or good friends or whatever. They're just that good of riders. I'm not that good. You know, I can hold my own, but you know, I think that, you know, we're asking the horse. You know, it's not natural to put somebody on the back of that horse. I mean, that's, you know, out west. You know, I have a friend that's, you know, we've hunted together and things like that. Well, he's had a bear attack him, and bears attack, and they will try to grab those horses, and cougars try to grab those horses from the back. So you're putting someone in a position where that horse innately knows he doesn't want something there, because that's how predators attack those animals. They can't see behind them that well. You know, their eyes are on the side, so they're kind of animals of prey, but they can't see behind them. And so that horse has to have some trust with you in order to let you up there. And so that's kind of where I try to begin. I try to establish that trust, so that he knows he can trust me not to hurt him. He can trust me not to do something stupid. And I'm asking him to violate his instincts in order to allow me back there. You know, and so I try to, you know, I think that's basically where it has to start. I mean, you're asking him to do something that is counter to his instincts. So you ought to spend the time learning, teaching him that he can trust you, instead of just trying to ride it out of it. And there are people that can do that. I'm not sure that's good for the horse. You know, because, you know, we all can experience trauma. Horses can. I mean, you exercise race horses, you know, and and those guys are really spirited. And if you don't know what you're doing, you can really, you can mess up his training. You can, you can, traumatize him where he can't do his job anymore, and he wants to do his job. And so I try to build that trust, and that, so with trust comes respect, and you can tell if a horse respects you, just by how he sets his head, how he's got his ears, whether they're laid back or pinned or forward. You can feel, you can tell when they're relaxed with you. That lip will kind of droop a little bit, and so that's what you want. You want that horse to be relaxed around you, because just like I want to have a good ride. I mean, I don't like fighting a horse all the time. I like to step into the saddle and hear the saddle creak under me, feel the horse move under me, and enjoy getting out and just chasing the horizon. The horse wants to do that too, but when he doesn't have any faith and confidence and trust in you, then he's all over the place. And so that's where building that bond and that trust comes in, because you're asking him to violate something that he knows is not really good for him, and that's having someone right there on his back.
Well, and so for me, I think that's my next question was going to be what do you think the most beneficial part of humans and horses working together is? And for me, that's part of it, because we learn if we can get this 1,200 pound, 1,100 pound horse to allow us on their back and trust us and understand what we're asking them to do, then it helps us to kind of reflect and look at our own, what we're going through, and how we can learn to trust and maybe work through things.
Well,
what do you think?
I think you're exactly right. There's two famous people that I have studied and that are someone that are meaningful to me, and I have different questions for you told me about somebody that was my hero, but President Ronald Reagan is quoted as saying the best thing for the inside of a man, and I think he would add a woman nowadays, but the best thing for the inside of a man is the outside of a horse. The Prime Minister of England,
Winston Churchill.
Winston Churchill, thanks. I was having a moment there, but Winston Churchill said essentially the same thing. That is meaningful and helpful for what ails the human spirit, and so I think that maybe that's why we as Americans are drawn to cowboys and to the horse. Is there's that sense of freedom, there's that sense of independence, but there's also that sense of teamwork. I mean, in none of these movies is the horse is almost as central a player as the cowboy. And in True Grit, it was Bo. Bo had a name. Bo had history with Rooster Cogburn, and so the horse is kind of the horse as much as the car, and the cowboy is part of the cultural icon here. And other countries have that too, but I don't know that anybody else feels about the horse the way we do. A lot of European countries have a market for horse flesh. That doesn't happen here. It's very different. So the thing about the horse is that those two famous people thought it was beneficial to our spirit to interact with horses, and I found the same thing. My son died while I was overseas in Iraq, and when I came home, never got to see him alive. He was stillborn, and so the way I dealt with that was, my wife and I, we comforted and consoled each other, but when I needed to just take care of me, I spent a lot of time horseback, and I saw a lot of country. And I watched a lot of sunsets and a lot of sunrises from the back of the horse. And so it was a way for me, and it's almost kind of magical. It's almost kind of magic, you know. It's hard for me to explain what happened, but something happened. But I don't know that I could put it into words.
That's funny that you say that, because a lot of times that's what I describe. It's magical, and really I tell people they need to just come out here to the farm and see it and experience it and live it, because it's hard to really put it into words. It's hard to capture what happens.
And I just while we're talking about the magic, Sarah has told me, last year when she first got to work with a client and a horse on kind of a one-on-one level, what she told me was, she says, this client came out, and when she touched, I think it was Snowflake, when she touched Snowflake, she changed. Everything about her changed.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's kind of the magic. Don't know you could describe it. Don't know that you could, make a formula for it, other than horse and somebody that needs help.
Yep. And you've mentioned Sarah a couple times. That's your daughter.
Right.
Do you have any favorite moments or progression stories, magic moments that you've either seen with her or somebody else here at MTRA?
So yeah, I mean, I try to stay out of her way and your way and Catherine's way, and let you guys do the things that you do best, and just kind of do what I'm told. But I do enjoy watching Sarah, and what I've seen with her in her time here, is she's gone from, and her horse skills are good. She came with a set of horse skills because we ride. Sarah will ride hours every day. We'll go hunting, and she'll spend 2 weeks horseback with me, and so she rides. But what I've seen is she's been able to take those skills and lead and become a leader with those skills. And one of the things that she told me was that she really loved being here and helping people that have experience some of the same problems or some of the same challenges. Let's put it that way. And because that's what I've always tried to tell Sarah. These are challenges. These are obstacles. These are not impediments. These things can overcome them. And what I've seen here is her overcome a lot of those things and be able to assert herself in a positive way as a leader for the horse. Because if you're not the leader, they will be. And you just have to do that in a proper manner. So she's gone to be a proper leader for the horse, and then a proper mentor for a lot of the kids that are here and a lot of the adults.
Absolutely. Well, and so we always do some silly questions.
Okay.
You answered I think one of them you might have answered. If you had a hero, or if you could go back in time, who might you want to meet?
So let me just answer those both differently. Okay. So if I were to say that I have a hero, that would have to be my parents. And when I think about a hero, we could talk about a lot of people. We could talk about the men and women of the armed forces serving right now. But I would tell you that when I was in, I didn't like being called a hero. I was doing something I felt called to do. I considered myself a professional soldier, and I love doing that for my country. So I'm going to say my mom and dad, because a little bit about their story. They grew up extremely poor, with only maybe a third grade education, and so you know, my dad joined the Navy, ran away and joined the Navy at 16, and learned to read, and the military taught him to read and write, all of that stuff. My mom taught herself to read and write. You know, they raised a family. They raised me with not a lot of money. You know, when my dad died when I was 14, you know, my mom, we never missed a beat. My mom worked 3 jobs. I went to school and worked a full-time job and a part-time job, and then she worked 3. So, you know, that kind of, you know, never say die was something I was instilled with from a very early age, because, and I think that's, you know, one of the things that, you know, and I think I saw this a little further down the list, what advice would I give, you know, the younger generation? And I think, you know, there's a lot of things I would say, but, you know, I would probably say that some of the best advice I ever got, or one of the best characteristics or traits that was ever imparted to me, was never quit. And then the other thing that I think I would tell kids is, you know, and kids, I'm almost 60, so, you know, that's a pretty broad range. You know, one of the things, I see this with my son and my daughter sometimes, you know, you know, I'm having problems with this. Oh, well, let me tell you how to handle it. Well, you know, things have changed. Well, there's not that much new under the sun. There's a reason, you know, that old people tend to know everything, or think they know everything. It's because they really do. Because experience is a grand teacher. Whether it's with horses, you know, I know a lot of things not to do with a horse because I have done them and it did not turn out so well. So I would think, you know, maybe that old Bible admonition to respect your elders, and then to never quit. Because I think, you know, one of the things that my buddy and I always talk about back in Wyoming is, you can't beat a man or a woman that won't quit. You may fight them to a standstill, but you can never beat them if they won't quit.
Yeah.
And I think that's true of life. Life will, you know, life may fight you to a standstill. You may not be making progress, but it's never going to beat you.
I love that. Definitely love that. And
who would I like to meet?
Yeah,
Reagan.
Ronald Reagan. I love that too. Perfect. And then, so I guess those ones weren't so silly, but our official silly question would be, if you were a horse, what breed and or what would you look like?
So, my horse gets one of my horses gets a lot of compliments. His name is Ace. He's a Hancock, so he's quarter horse crossed with draft. So they're bigger, and they're used a lot out west for stock horses, and then, you know, we hunt a lot off horseback, and everybody seems to think he's very handsome. So he's a buttermilk buckskin, and he's a Hancock, so that's what I would go for.
Okay, definitely would agree with that. We need a Hancock around here probably too. We need some little variety in our herd.
Yeah.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much for joining us today for this meet and greet, and for all you do for MTRA. Really, we do appreciate you. You're kind of a jack of all trades here, and you have worked wonders with the horses. You pitch in at the car show, at the holiday market. You volunteer for all kinds of work days.
Well, you know, thanks. You know, I'm retired, and it's nice to be able to do some of the things that I've always wanted to do while I was working. And you know, as far as helping out, I really appreciate what you guys have done for Sarah, because you know, we have horses, and but it's, you know, for Sarah, she gets so much, maybe not more, but different. She gets different stuff when she's here, you know, learning, you know, getting professional training on how to set that horse. I mean, and my whole goal is for her to be a better horseman or horsewoman than I am. So I've taught her everything I know. And then when she comes up here, she learns, you know, things from a different viewpoint, different things, different disciplines. And I think that makes her a more well-rounded horsewoman as well as a person. And I appreciate it.
Well, thank you. We are happy to have her and you, and to help her in her growth as a horsewoman. You've certainly set the example and done a great job.
Well, thanks. I appreciate it.
All right, Doug. Well, thank you so much, and tune in next week for another meet and greet.
All right. Let her buck.